what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of appreciation to Abraham Mohammed, Adam, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chow Young Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Robinson, David Wayne Foster, Daz Studio 68, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, Godrockin, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Maria Neelands, Matt, Missouri Bear, Nagara, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Rob H, Skeptic936, Steve ALM, Texas Mike, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Tom Herkins, Unbelievable Productions, and Windrider. So a massive shout out of thanks to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we do have a couple of people in the Discord and G Plus servers, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy the dulcet tones of whoever the hell is in there while I set up for today's live show.
And when they push something, it's suspicious, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I see the ads, the written ads below YouTube channels. You're telling me there's Audible ads on YouTube Music.
Well, it's not YouTube Music, but I just YouTube creates like a playlist. Like you listen to one song, and you go click on a playlist for that song, and they'll pick like songs recommended to that song that you like.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it creates a playlist automatically for you.
All right, just another avenue I guess is all I'm trying to say. And then,
but it's just regular YouTube videos is basically it. Go on.
Yeah. So the news, the radio, because I went to town yesterday. It's everywhere. What you just described is everywhere and in different forms, either written or, like you said, Audible. So
even on the Bible website, it's called Bible Study Tools. They have like urgent encouragement and prayer in time of pandemic. See all of our coronavirus resources here.
Yeah. The same pastor who says that doesn't believe Genesis 1. Anyway, so the whole
can't go to church.
The whole of I can't. Okay, go ahead. I can't even get my statement out. All right. There's
I sounded done to me. I just said that you can't even go to church right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to say something and your full statement didn't come in, so it was weird. No, you're right. They're trying to prevent that too. But again, that's going to relate to what I'm going to say. So this isolation, the separation of 6 feet or whatever, depending where you're at. Yesterday, I go to pick up some groceries. It's my son's 35th birthday, and we're going to celebrate. And I'm not wearing a mask. But everyone in the store is for the first time. Because each time I go, I see there's less and less people not wearing a mask and more wearing a mask. So I'm kind of calculating this and taking note mentally on this. So the manager helps me find the product. And he looks at me, and he's a good guy. He says, "Hey, let me warn you. Police are handing out $1,000 tickets for not wearing a mask." And I said, "Really? It's come to that?" He says, "Yeah, there was a father and a son here the other day, and son didn't have a mask. Father did, but the father got a ticket for the son not wearing a mask." I go, wow, what they're resorting to for all this, BS. And he kind of nodded his head with me. So I quickly shopped and got out of there. And came home, told the story. Next thing I know, my daughter tells me a story. My wife tells me a story. So it's pretty clear what they're doing. They're purposely creating an environment to get everybody vaccinated. They are purposely telling doctors to fudge the numbers of death certificates to all show COVID-19, even though there was other underlying reasons for it. So they want to, whether this is a test or this is the real thing, I don't know. But what they want to do is they want to heighten everything so that when they do come with the vaccine, oh, thank goodness I could take off my mask. I have some of my freedoms again. And then you got Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation pushing this vaccine that they say is going to take almost 18 months. They want to put a tracker chip in it. It's all too convenient to have all these stories at the same time, and at the same time finding people who aren't sick, and at the same time having the medical professionals come out and say they're telling us how to list the deaths rather than what we know the deaths are. They want everything to pump up the COVID-19 numbers so that the next go around, when the new virus comes around, if there is a next go around, everyone behaves even more so than they are today. They're just conditioning for a future one, or this is it, and the conditioning's going to work here. I don't know which one of those two is going to be, but it's apparent we're all headed towards a mandated vaccine with a tracking chip eventually.
I'm not too sure.
Got it.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, it's a possibility,
Bill
but
Gates' statement.
Go on, Ryan.
Say that again.
Did you guys hear Bill Gates' latest statement?
Share it.
Apparently, I mean, I just now was reading or listening to something about it a little bit ago, but apparently he said something along the lines of there will be no more, there could be the chance that there's no more mass gatherings of any kind without a mass vaccine.
That was about a week ago. That happened about a week ago.
What?
Yeah, he's with an interviewer, and he's describing the potential for things to be back to normal if the country's locked down early in about 6 weeks. That quickly escalates by way of the interviewer to about 10 weeks, and ends up by the end of the interview him saying middle of July. So it sort of pads out in that discussion. But yeah, he's saying, the important stuff with low infection possibilities like schools, they can go back nice and quick. But the football games and the mass gatherings, that might not come back ever. But obviously we'll see how the vaccinations go along the way. That was about a week ago.
Yeah, the logic in that one, the schools and the gatherings.
Look, for a week solid, I've been saying, look, this is a done deal. This is how it is now. Get used to it. And then, I don't know, what the hell's Bill Gates telling the world what's going on? Isn't he just involved with the foundation that's producing these vaccines? Isn't that his only role in this?
Exactly.
Well, why'd you give a shit what he's telling you then? Just pay attention to what your government lays down as the laws. And they already have done that as well. I discussed it on the show I did on the second channel, the Ballbusters After Show, with a little picture of a woman in a mask. Coincidentally, my day-to-day screen. Just a funny coincidence, that my screen for the last several months, because of the usefulness of the audio reactiveness of that particular animated desktop, I've used a woman in a face mask, literally in a case, and I've never really given it much thought. It's just a woman with hair moving and a useful couple of sound bars at the bottom to monitor Discord with, and that was all it was. That's all the thought I gave to it. After looking through beaches and various other things, I was like, well, that one actually looks, okay, but it's got a nice dancing VU meter, which is precisely what I actually use it, practically use it, as opposed to it looking pretty. But you go to, what shall I use for the backdrop for this Ballbusters After Show? Oh, just my desktop. It just coincidentally is a woman in a gas mask. You know what I mean?
You're ahead of the curve.
Maybe.
Yeah, all of these other things, including 5G and all this other stuff, and then you saw what came out on that, right? New YouTube guidelines on that and videos. So they're using all that, but they're pushing this thing. This is the one that the full control is here with this whole vaccine thing, I think.
Well,
so There may not be truth to all the rest of this stuff, but that's not the real deal. What you said resonates. They've already done what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and people are focused on what might be, what could be the reason they're doing it. It's like they're doing it. They've done it. You're in the situation now, but why are you constantly worried about what might be? It's like, isn't it bad enough? Bloody hell. But that's already a done deal and everyone's defending it. It's like that's how the norm becomes the norm. This is the revelation I've had in this, which is that the normies set the norm. Well, the normies have set the norm. So this is your new normal, and you're all defending it. So get used to it. What do you want? I'm not going to fall out with people over it. I'm watching people fall out with each other left and right over this, and it's going to be the case. People are going to get more and more stressed out. And
what do you mean fall out? Who's fall? Without mentioning names.
That's
what do you mean?
The point.
I'm not going to mention any names. Just people around me are falling out with each other, and I anticipated that being the case. From very early on. And certain people, again, without mentioning any names, I divorced myself from on account of the fact that I didn't want to have a massive, massive fallout with them, and could see it. I could foresee that happening. So for those reasons, I've kind of kept my distance from those sorts of arguments, and kind of kept on the fringes and involved myself where I've had to, or distance myself completely where necessary, because this is going to be a stressful time for a lot of people, and I don't want people who maybe fall out with me. I'll give you an example. Let's focus it on me rather than others, right? So at the moment, people are falling out with me because I don't disagree with the whole 5G fear porn. And as a result, there's people who are typically, long-time subscribers that are getting annoyed with me. Now, typically when that happens, I'm like, take it or leave it, sod off. I've got very little empathy for that. It's like, take it or leave it. Don't get annoyed. And what you get in return is, look, we're on the same side. In other words, take my view because we have the same opinion on the Earth being flat. So I just think, hold on, I just want to make my point. So at a point, I said to myself, right, all bets are off in terms of people's behaviour. People are acting extremely out of character. Therefore, you've got to kind of make certain allowances for people acting out of character. And when they do, I just kind of roll my eyes and think, don't let it get to you. Don't let it make you distance yourself from that person for eternity, even if they're telling you that's exactly what they want to do with you. Just think, no, things will normalise. They won't go back to normal ever. If you think normal is what was the way things were, that'll never happen. But things will normalise. In other words, people will get used to the situation. People will become a bit less stressed. They'll relax about it a little bit more, and then eventually, depending on the permissions that are given by their rulers, they'll go back to whatever they consider to be normal at a later stage. In other words, things will normalise. And at that time, people may reflect on their behaviour through this troubling time. They may not. Now, I will just disavow all of that kind of nonsense that's happened in the interim, and just say, look, that's just got to, for me, be forgotten about, because people will act weird. And I just want to kind of say right now, it's like, I expect that, I anticipate it, maybe I will too. Maybe this is the weird, me being all nice, but who knows? I'm just saying, I'd rather just kind of put it not in my back pocket, on the back burner, basically. When things like this happen, people fall out with each other, even if it's me, I'd rather just forget about it.
Yeah,
I think that was part of one of the
I don't think you're denying anything. You're saying, okay, show me proof. I mean, that was clear yesterday. You were just saying, show me proof. That's all. You're not saying it can't be.
Well, I noticed a little hole in the narrative which has been prevalent. I tested it 2 or 3 times just to check if that was the case with people sort of punting the narrative. I asked them how much power is being used. None of them knew. I was quite shocked.
Yeah.
And they all just tell me, no, the frequency is important. The frequency is important. It's like, what, the frequency that's currently prevalent already in your Wi-Fi? Well, what gives? This is just, what I don't really understand why the significance of frequency has been attributed to this, but it has, to the point where everyone's ignoring power. And it's like, no, we shouldn't worry about the power. When you've got a microwave oven, what it says on the front is how much power it's got, because that determines how quickly it'll cook your chicken, right? 1,000 watts will be quicker to cook the chicken than 750 watts. So that's what you look at when you buy a microwave oven. It's printed on the bloody door. When it comes to something that apparently can do the same thing and cook your head, well, how much power has that got? Nobody knows. It's just like, I know. Why don't you know?
Well, I know that here, when we did electrical on some of the buildings, you had to match the gauge of wire to the type of power coming in. So obviously 220 has to be really thicker, and down from there. So I understand the power thing. And
Okay.
now,
Just a quick question then. If you've got like a wall dryer or a wall heater that's electric, can you just put more power into it to get more heat out of it, or will it have a theoretical maximum?
Well, if it's got the wrong wiring, you'll cause a fire because there'll be too much heat generated.
No. Okay. But you're gonna amp up what's going into it. You're gonna pump up the juice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that if you've got a heater, will you get more power out? Will you get more heat out of it? Or will it just give you the amount of heat it's rated? Go on, sorry.
If you put too much power in something that's not rated or set up to handle the power, you will destroy it. It might cause a fire. It won't. It might work initially, but for a few seconds or a minute, and then boom, it's just too much. It can't handle it.
Right. So how much power it could cope with and how much power potentially you could put through it. Because I've also heard the argument, well, you can amp up the power at a later stage. You're like, can you? Really? I mean, I've had a look at the electronics that's claimed to be inside them. Now, I didn't do massive amounts of research in the electronics. I've got a vague idea what I'm looking at when it comes to electronics. And I do mean vague. I was a salesman, but I worked with electronics. So I've got a vague idea when someone shows me what's supposed to be in these lampposts and transmitters, what they're showing me. And I go, okay, that all makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And then someone comes along and go, but they can turn up the power. And you're like, no. What are you babbling about? Show me how that's going to be possible then. Unless you can.
Well, there is a guy who actually took apart one of these lamps, the LED lamps in Europe or England, actually it was, and he opened it up, and the wiring to the LED was the thin because it doesn't take much, but the wiring to the whole thing was a very thick wire, and he says and it had more not capacitors. I have to go watch the video again, but they had more of these
power.
No. What do you call the things that not ohms? I can't remember. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Ohms is resistance.
It had a really thick wire in there that shouldn't belong there if you're just powering LED lamps, was the point of the video. And then he opened it up and showed it. And then he showed the circuit board for the LED lamps could deal with a lot less power. But the circuit board was the bigger one was for this unit.
Okay. Let me just address that. Wire. Okay, I get it. Let me just address that. So when I've done installation, so really early in my career as a grunt and a salesman, one of the things I'd have to do is go out on site and do the installations, the actual installations. And when you plugged the wire up to somewhere that was going to be pretty permanent, you wanted a little bit of extra security or peace of mind that were you to add extra things to that, you'd have enough wires or enough capacity in the wires that you were using to add little things that were extra. So if you were building a very expensive tower, wouldn't you want more power than potentially the first little device that you stuck on there, knowing that pretty much every tower ever always had a shitload of other stuff piled on top of it after it's been built? So yeah, there's a good chance they'll put other devices on there and they'll need power to do that. But does that mean that the actual transmitters, the 5G microwave transmitters, these millimeter wave transmitters, are capable of having the juice bumped up so that they could fry your brains like a microwave? Absolutely not.
But again, this is a side issue right now for me, because what's happening now is the plan, which is lockdown, the wearing of the mask, the finding, the Shapiro, the forced vaccinations down the road. That's for the good of humanity with a tracking chip. I mean, they're telling it to you right there. I'm more concerned about that than what they might amp up later or not amp up later. But on that side of the argument, the side that we're talking now, I say it's a possibility. I don't discount it. And here's why. Because the big red flag, the same one with the pharmaceuticals, they're exempt from any lawsuits. Who gets exempt from any lawsuits unless they got some kind of nefarious thing going on, which I can't divine at the moment.
Yeah, you
but
can.
At the same time,
yeah, you can.
Hang on.
What do you mean? You don't need to divine anything. They're already doing it. It's just a network.
No, I'm saying me personally.
But we already know what they're doing. And we know it is nefarious. They're gathering up all our data and tracking our phones and tracking this and we know they tell us it. Well, they're doing that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that you could equate that last statement of yours to me saying about the vaccines. But on this side, on this thing where they got us talking about on purpose, I get it. It is to keep our minds off of what they just did to us. I get it. I totally agree with that. But what I'm also saying is that you can't actually negate the possibility of the distraction being the future thing because of the red flags that surround it. Meaning,
which future thing? Be specific. Which future thing?
Well, what I'm trying to say is, as a whole, with very little research of less than a week, I can't imagine people have been fighting 5G well before this crisis, so-called, arrived, having spent 25 million in one study, having 240 doctors and scientists, professional men resigning from Microsoft, or one man at least, and say, okay, that they're doing all this, but what are they doing all this for? What data do they have? And at the same time, simultaneously, the telecoms are protected from lawsuits. Okay, without any wires, any proof of actual 5G, those two right there are saying, keep an eye on this. That's all. Just keep an eye on this, because that doesn't sit well to exempt a group of people from any lawsuits of any kind. Just doesn't sit well. And they're hiding some. I don't know what they're hiding. Could it be what the 240 scientists and doctors are saying? I don't know, maybe. But the point is, it's not a closed case for me. But currently, I'm not arguing 5G. Currently, I'm saying, look what they're doing. They've done it. I'm with you on that. Look, they want us to talk about 5G, and then now they got YouTube guidelines that are going to shut you down if you misrepresent it. Well, how do you misrepresent it? How do you misrepresent 5G? According to who?
Claim it's a bloody weapon.
Okay, so maybe if it wasn't a weapon, you wouldn't need exemption from lawsuits. Is the next one coming up? So you see what I'm saying? They're just leaving just enough breadcrumbs to keep the conspiracy going.
Yeah, I agree.
But these are the actual things that are in law. So it's not just breadcrumbs of the mind. It's actually they can't get sued. So because of that,
I do wish all the people that had the energy to go after all this 5G stuff had that same energy regarded to the people that dump fluoride in our water.
Exactly.
And,
there you go.
And poisoning our food, and it's like
there's
still.
That's not fair. You can't do that, Chocolate. You can't just. It's the same thing that. At least you've got a comparison being drawn. It's on a fine line, but 10th Man's comparison with Monsanto at least is drawing an analogy by comparison, even if it's weak in my opinion. But you're just saying, these people should be. It's like back when Tim Osman was like Flat Earth's muddying the waters of 9/11 truth, and you just want to slap that person, and you've just become that person, Chocolate.
Let me slap him.
No, well, I'm just saying.
You're just saying it's just muddying. You're just saying these 5G talks are muddying the waters for fluoride truth. That's what you're basically saying, isn't it, Chocolate? Now,
fluoride truth, yes.
Right. Okay.
No, it's that I'm sitting around. I'm listening to all these discussions, and I'm like, people so mad about this, but they're still doing other fuck shit to us. It's like,
yeah, the main one being literally.
What do you attack?
The main one actually happening right now, right around you. But everyone wants to look to the future and why that could be, rather than, hang on a second.
Exactly. Thank you. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, my Monsanto.
But anyway, good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
My Monsanto analogy was seed for thought. Come on, it was good.
It was food for thought. Feed for thought, did you say? That's even better.
Yeah, I said seed for thought.
Love it.
It was a hybrid argument. It just went over your head. That's all.
It's terrible.
Too much, man.
Right, I've got to GMO.
Let's keep it on flat Earth, man. I'm tired of this other stuff.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Hello, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Good to have you.
What up, Paul?
Did I say it? Gee, it's Paul.
Your youngest is coming up for a birthday in about a month's time. Is that right?
Who, me? Yeah. In June. Yep, it's my birthday. It's coming up soon.
Yeah, mine's on Monday.
Cool.
Clover's.
Well,
I shouldn't say mine. Clover's.
Oh, so the big 4-0.
Yeah, that's not for a while.
My big 4-0 is coming in August.
exciting.
Yeah, when 4 occurs, you'll notice all things in your body that you didn't notice before, like your knees, your
No way, I'm
back.
not agreeing with that.
Oh, that's good. Well, at 6'1", you will, and you're gonna agree with that.
People finally are arriving in the chat. I searched it out on the second channel to see if it was actually published, and it was. And I was like, okay. So I wrote a little comment, seems to be working. And then about, I don't know, 15 minutes later, nobody had commented, but at least somebody has now. Should ask them, really, how did they come across the show? Let's ask Emma. Subscribe to Emma. Emma UK. Hey, Emma. How did you find the show?
I see it listed on my subscriptions.
Perfect. That's something.
Yeah,
They still pop up on my subscriptions.
It's frustrating in a way because although I'm still checking the stats, it's still, the show has got 50% less people watching. That's just a fact. So it was getting 1,800, 1,900, 2,000, 2,200, sometimes more. If it was, us addressing Professor Dave or something, it could get 5,000 views. In other words, they could go beyond that. Now the show's getting 1,200 views. And in its first 12 hours, typically it would be well into its, first 1,000 views. Now it's at 700, 800, maybe 850 within its first 12 hours. In other words, drastically less.
So if it's showing in the subscription, I found mine, and the notification hits either just before or after you start the show, it shouldn't be getting less views unless you've lost half your audience for some reason.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, I knew already that the audience I was getting were dedicated subscribers because I can check that on stats. In other words, it's not, new audience members from YouTube kindly sharing all my hard work out with normal people. Far from it. It's just the people who are dedicated to actually coming and seeing the show anyway. Then it seemed to tail off slightly less than it's tailed off now. And like I say, I took action, moved the channel schedules around to hopefully combat it, and at least for that period, that did work. In other words, now, a month later, I can look at the stats and go, okay, yeah, the second channel took a massive hit. The primary channel took a little dip because of having all the Uncut and After shows being published on it. So that did work. Now I'm into just burning myself out making non-stop videos. And I've spent the last week trimming out all the housekeeping questions. I've got one more to go. The one they've got to go, although it's not published, I just find myself going and watching it on my. It's already on the YouTube list of videos that I've got in draft, so I can watch it. And it's really short, but it just makes me laugh. So I've watched it several times, and it is the shortest of all of the housekeeping questions. So I don't know if you can guess which one it is. Got 2 minutes before we go live.
Molten iron core.
Molten iron core, yeah. So, can you imagine how that got edited together? What the question was like and what the reply was like?
Any evidence of molten iron core? Nope.
In the center of a presupposed.
That's it.
Yeah, chocolate, you got it in one. So it's basically any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, and just by chance, we get two people groan. We get 10th Man and Darwin both going, oh, and Darwin goes, and then no. then a long pause. then someone else from Discord really loud goes, no. I'm like, alrighty then.
That's great. Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
It's just funny. It's all funny. I didn't have to edit it at all. It's all like all of the other videos, the little chunked out section, obviously any lengthy pauses that ruin the timing, I've edited them down, and I went to quite a lot of effort with them. in my mind, I'm thinking, one of these must go viral. That's how I approach all of my videos. If this was the one, I wouldn't want any spelling errors in it and so on and so forth. So you want to kind of make it every video your best video, right? So I'm putting a lot of effort in and like I say, editing out little sections that didn't make a whole lot of sense or were off topic. And with that one, it was just literally the clip. And it still makes me chuckle. Just thinking about it makes me chuckle, if I'm honest. Right, we're getting behind. Better start the live show, eh?
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, before I introduce our panel and Discord server, I'm going to say a quick shout out to all of the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel members, but in particular those on a level of Lion. So shout out to DJ Neo Shaman, Steve ALM, Anaconda Maltlicker 17, Rhett Priestley, Contrapian, hope I've said your name right, Windrider, and All People Free People. So big shout out to all of you for supporting me as a Lion Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. We are joined by Righteous Force, Paul Hall, Chocolate Sane, and 10th Man in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all. And Arwin.
Hello, hello.
Good morning, all.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. And I noticed I had a notification pop up.
Woohoo!
Show.
I just got it right now.
Hey. Getting notifications. Look at that chat speeding on by. Hey. We're actually reaching an audience. Thank God. Any signs of a physical Earth curve edge?
Not from Arcatillo.
I have a question on that.
Blocks and,
Can you hear me?
not from 2 blocks away from there.
Yeah, we do. Is that, hold on. Was that Moose Tone?
Nope.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's me. Can you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, Moose Tone.
Okay. Yeah, I had a question about that because I'm wondering whether you remember I had at least attempted to make a small presentation regarding the bulge between 2 points, and I'm wondering because I was making some calculations in the Earth curve calculator, and it would seem that if you have I'm talking in meters, if you have 200 meters between 2 points at sea level, you would have a 784 meters bulge. So the sagitta. Did you follow me?
Yeah, you're just describing the general geometry asserted in the Earth curve
Yeah.
calculator. Feel free to carry on.
So if you were to be able to see a distance on sideways of 200 kilometers, then you would then it would be interesting if you were according to the globe Earth model, you would be able to see a 784 meters bulge, and I think the fact that you wouldn't see would disprove the the globe. And it doesn't seem impossible to do that, at least geometrically, if I'm looking at it, because my understanding is that the observations to the Isle of Man, for example, were 100 kilometers, right? So if you're, let's say you're at the base, at one angle of a triangle, you're if you're looking 100 kilometers in one way and then 100 kilometers the other way, then if you meet both ends, you might have approximately 200,000 kilometers. 200 kilometers between those 2 points. So perhaps you would be able to see that distance to observe that.
What's that?
Well, the bulge or the absence of bulge.
Yeah, that's what a black swan image is. What any black swan does. Shows the geometric horizon.
Yeah, but it does it. Yeah, but it does it in. I was thinking sideways.
Yeah, you're talking about curvature on the x-axis, right?
No.
Are you not saying
on the other axis?
You're not saying that the horizon itself should bulge from left to right. Is that not what you're supposing?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I'm sure I mentioned this to you before. So in the same calculator, there's an advanced section. I think there's a little tab that gives you an advanced section, and it gives you the measurements.
It calculates the sagitta.
Yeah, but it still gives you the. Maybe I'm saying the wrong axis, but from left to right, you can calculate how many pixels it should be dropping by according to their maths.
Exactly.
It was.
But has anyone made an observation between 2 points on a flat plane, so sideways, that is far enough to be able to detect or not this famous bulge?
Well, as I say, the one
or to disprove it, let's say.
Well, yeah, the Isle of Man composite did, but because you're rotating the camera and then you're compositing together the image, that presents a whole raft of problems in and of itself. But ultimately, yeah, like you say, it shouldn't be too difficult, which is what agrees me when you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, well, you can't see it till 120,000 feet, you can't even see it. It's like, well, yeah, you should be able to calculate it from the ground. Here's the maths for it. One of your claims is Earth curve based on boats going over it, and that would result in, as you describe, your left to right horizon actually bowing and giving you a bulge. And it shouldn't be too difficult. It should be really obvious. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But I think what is especially strong here is that you can't argue refraction in that case, because you can't have refraction that's straightening up a bulge.
Oh, but they do. That was something else that came to head in the Isle of Man discussion. So when Chris Monk's modelling all this out, and I'm explaining to him that as we're looking down the length of the Isle of Man, just see if I can find this so I can actually have it on screen while I'm talking about it. So as we're looking down the length of the Isle of Man, what we're seeing is further and further and further and further beyond the Earth curvature, and obviously that's just a fixed point at a given distance on the line that they used to claim was a geometric horizon. Well, I'll just play it from here. Hopefully we'll see some of the clips. So that being the case, for things to be on the horizon when they're further and further around the curve, they've got to be more and more refracted, more and more lifted up. And eventually I posed the question, well, doesn't that mean that everything is refracted? And the answer is yes. You can find citations, I haven't got any to hand for this, but yes, absolutely. Everything is all refracted. The whole lot. The whole thing's a mirage. Literally. In their model. It's absolutely nuts. But nothing's where it's supposed to be. In their model. In physicality terms, nothing's where it's supposed to be. It's all been bent up and refracted up into the position that it is that you see it. And that's particularly easy to explain when you've got the Isle of Man, because it is like a little... what would you call it? Like an almond shape. You're looking at the tip, and then you're looking further and further and further and further down the island at greater and greater and greater distances. God damn it, why can't I find it?
So would they also be saying that...
Sorry, I've just found it.
Yeah, something flat on the horizon, and then refraction is... it's curved sideways, so from left to right, but actually refraction is flattening it out? Is that what they're saying? Really?
Yeah, it's bringing you all more and more back from beyond the curve, if you want to phrase it in a particular way. But what I've got now is the model I was just describing. So, you've got your this tip here is where the Mackhold lighthouse is, and obviously if you represented this as the image that we've got, albeit with an arc because the camera's taking an arc, rewind it. I think it's actually got that in this picture with the. There we go. So this is the composite image, and it starts here, ends here, and it's arced around. And this is our position at St Bees, and we're looking through the viewfinder. Our closest point is 31 miles away, and that's Mackhold Lighthouse. So what you've got in terms of the picture that it presents you with is obviously just a single line horizon. But what you're actually looking at is further and further and further and further away as you look down the image. And there's various mountains that are dotted that, again, are going further and further beyond the curve. But for each individual one, you'll calculate it with its refractive value and how much it's been brought up. But obviously that for this mountain here is going to be different for this coastline here because it's a different position on a spherical surface as it curves around it. So in simplest terms, everything is refracted and nothing's where it's supposed to be. It's all been bent back up from furthering distances beyond the claim to be geometric horizon, obviously now debunked. So yeah, the whole thing is a nonsense. But you can only really discover those things when you start modelling it out and going through the process of describing how their models work by modelling it yourself. Now, at the time, we were all for the idea of reifying models. Some wanker got hold of a clip from that from about 4 years ago and juxtaposed me recently saying, we don't live on a model, with me back in the day saying, here's a picture of a model, we live on this bit here. It's like, yeah, what, 4 years ago when we were all reifying models together happily? Well done, yeah. Yeah, now I realise we don't live on a model. What do you know? People change their minds. You know what I mean? I didn't know what a reification fallacy was then. Anyway, my point being, this model is all refracted in their terms, and everything is in a position that the photograph presents, which isn't a position in geographic terms when you wrap it around a ball.
Oh, Nathan.
So yeah, but I don't get the argument on the side view, but because I mean, if I'm seeing something flat on the horizon that why would that? So essentially, it's curved from left to right, but refraction is making it flat. Really?
Yeah, it's doublespeak. Yeah, it makes no sense. It's a complete contradiction. But yes, that's right. That is their contradiction.
It's even sillier.
Has that really been claimed?
Hold on, Chocolate. Chocolate, hold on. Go on, I just want to hear this guy's revelation to the total doublespeak that is the model. Go on, go ahead.
No. But I haven't heard it claimed explicitly in that way by any Glober. Really explicitly, because they're always talking about refraction, so lifting things up from behind. But I haven't heard about them really claiming refraction is unbending things sideways.
Well, no, because they say that it's bending it to appear straight. So while it might look and calculate as being completely flat, what's actually happening, it is wrapped around a sphere, but I presuppose that item that appears to be flat in our picture is actually bent from beyond a reified Earth curve edge into a position where it sits on the horizon, refracted into that position. That's what they tell you. I mean, obviously they don't explicitly say, yeah, what we're looking at is basically the appearance of a flat world with perspective, but I don't account for perspective. I put it in side view and I mathematically calculate how much it's behind the reified Earth curve edge, and if it's further away, it's further behind that edge, and I'll just bring it back more with refraction because it's further away and I've got more refraction to bring it back with. That's not how they're going to say it, though, is it? They just say refraction. That's all they say.
Yeah, but sorry, just to clarify, really, if I'm understanding correctly. So you have point A on your, so really on the horizon, you have point A on your so on your left, and you have point B on on your right, and you have a straight line between the two. Really, it's and you're seeing something straight, and they're saying no, this. Are they really saying this is curved, but because of refraction, you're seeing it straight?
Yes. I've said this twice.
I've never heard that claim.
That is what they are saying.
Never heard that claim.
I know you haven't heard them say it explicitly, but we're talking about a model that makes no sense in reality and how they double speak their way around it. So no, they're not going to give us these explicit disclaimers. We have to drag them by their short hairs, point it out to... Mate, please. We have to drag them by their short hairs, pointing it out to them. But that's what we do here. Thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. So,
Yeah, man.
so
I mean,
Neil
that's
deGrasse
the
Tyson
thing.
is
They're
saying
not
when he
going
says
to
it's
come
flat.
out and just tell you these things, right? Because they have a narrative that they're trying to push. So they tell you these things in a way that you can accept it, right? But that's not the case, right?
No, I know.
It really isn't. Yeah,
I
man.
know. I'd be
So
interested. Sorry.
no.
Look,
I
I'd
mean,
be
it's
interested
cool.
in
It's just
doing
the
modus tollens on that one, to be honest.
well, I mean, they've
I can help
already
you.
denied the geometry of their model because before the black swan, they used to say that the geometric horizon was a thing, right? They used to call it the curve, the physical location that boats would go over that would obscure objects. Well, now they don't have it. Not only do they not have it, they say we've never seen it. So then how do they measure something they've never seen if everything is refracted?
They
It's a done
calculated.
deal.
They calculated
Yeah, it's not measurement.
based on their model.
So yeah, I just had just a second question on that. So is there anything else? So beyond there are pictures from space, and this supposed boats going over. Are there any other? What are the other? What is their other cowbell? What is their other observations of
You mean what
curvature?
else they got? Nothing. That's it. We've debunked the model.
Yeah,
That's it.
pretty much
You've got pictures from space to prove it's a ball. Well, they're been debunked by natural law, second law of thermodynamics, Boyle's law, gas law. We take your pick. It doesn't conform with natural law. So space, pictures from space, all fake. What you got then left over? Well, you got your observations from the ground with the mathematics of geometry. That's it. Once you debunk R, by debunking the geometry, the presupposition of this R value giving you a geometric horizon to begin with, once that's gone, everything about the model falls in upon itself. Now, it's taking some time for the fundies to realise this. Some of them just stick their heads in the sand and go, "Dead swan, it's already been debunked." Really? Okay, explain how it's been debunked. Because the modus tollens is absolutely watertight and it basically destroys your R value. You no longer have a presuppositional R value that's justifiable, giving you a physical geometric Earth curve edge. So it is game over for the model, and I think that's what you're asking. What else they got? Nothing. They've got a dead model.
So if you were to bring back Al-Biruni, so I mean, by the way, I don't know if Al-Biruni removed the atmosphere, but Al-Biruni would come and you would actually measure
like
the Earth to be the size, bigger than Jupiter, right?
Not exactly. So if you use Al-Biruni's measurement on the black swan, the original black swan, there's been loads, but just we like to focus on the original and best. Well, yeah, you'd end up with the outer edge of the Earth, i.e. if you just take one point as their edge, in this case we'll take the equator. The equator, in terms of its physical size, would be the same size as the orbital path of the moon. So your R value becomes the distance to the moon.
Just a little bigger. 260.
Yeah, it is actually a little bit bigger. That's right. It's actually beyond that. But yeah, I like for people to reference it. If anybody's got any idea of how far the moon is, if you've seen it done as a scale demonstration, if you haven't, go and check it out. Just type in scale demonstration of the moon and how far it is from the Earth, and you'll find somebody on YouTube with a golf ball and a football or something similar, showing you how many paces away you have to be to get that scale for the claimed orbital distance based on Kepler's third law and an assumption of the R value. Nevertheless, if you can see that, it gives you an idea of how big Earth would have to be the size it should be if you've still got a physical geometric horizon. The reason it's called the Black Swan is because it smashes it so far into next week that even their own side have to relinquish the idea of having a geometric horizon. And at that point, it's game over for the globe.
Yeah.
After Arwin comments, I'd like to make a comment.
Well, I was Moose Tone. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that? It's your point.
No, not really. I mean, no. I think it's pretty revealing. To be honest, I just yeah. Again, I think should the argument not be, well, look, if there were, if you had someone let's say from the Middle Ages or from earlier on coming in, how would you show that person that there's curvature?
You can't utilize the model to show them anymore. So, well, just to answer you, so what you would have done is gone and got a fake picture from a fake place and said, here it is, we've already taken pictures. Not me personally. Liars who claim they go to a violation of a natural law have taken pictures. Well, they're in a natural law violation. They definitely haven't taken any pictures. That's a big fat lie. One of the few people in this argument we can actually directly call liars, because they are. They know they're not going to a sky vacuum because there isn't one. That's a violation of natural law. Anyway, once you get to the ground level argument, all you've got to assert is a presupposition of an R value giving you a physical geometric horizon. That's the starting basis. So before 2020, before the Black Swan argument, you could justify, if you're a fundy, to your own satisfaction, that it's okay and acceptable to presuppose the R value. Now, all we could do is say, well, you're a fundy religitard then. In R you trust. Radius dominus, gravitas spiritus sanctus. Go in peace, fundy. You trust in R. Well, now they can't trust in R because the model's become untenable. You don't have a physical geometric horizon. You don't have what the R value gave you in the model. Now you only have a geometric horizon existing in one place only in existence in the model. Therefore, not our reality. And a justification that, well, it's not the geometric horizon, it's a refracted non-geometric. Well, that's not the model then, is it? The game over, globe, nowhere to go, it's the end of the road, it's become untenable, you can't trust in R, R's been debunked, the geometric horizon by their own standards is no longer geometric, it's no longer physical Earth curve. So what they got? Nothing. The end of the globe religion. It is untenable.
Yeah.
First housekeeping question.
Yeah, I think they have nothing else. So, well, thank you very much, guys. Very interesting.
No
Isn't
problem.
it just? That's why it's so quiet. And what are they going to rebut it with? Other than a few stragglers that come along with older arguments they don't understand themselves. I'm searching for responses at the moment, and it's really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Generally, people were like, oh, it's already been debunked. Here's another picture of a white swan. And then you look at it and go, that's a black swan. They obviously don't understand the argument. But, these are, like I say, the tail ends of anybody with any modicum of intelligence actually attacking this argument. And even those people with what they claim to be massive levels of intelligence basically affirmed our argument and said they don't have a geometric horizon, and then drew some donkey dicks on some spheres. It was really funny.
And then said you would never expect to see the geometric horizon.
Yeah,
That's
indeed.
great.
Go ahead,
never
Moose
expect
Stone.
to see the curve, guys. Don't worry about what we've been arguing with you about for all these years. Nah.
Exactly. We're not going to expect to see that curve right on chocolate. Go ahead, Moose Stone.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't heard anybody ask whether Al-Biruni had removed the atmosphere. But has anyone asked that question to a Glober?
We don't need to. We can make the assertion on our own. So, we brought up Al-Biruni of recent times for that very reason. All right, so it's always refracted. All right, well, that buggers up the claim from Al-Biruni then, doesn't it? That's just make it as a statement. Don't need to ask them anything. What, you're going to ask him? You could say, given that you believe, Fundy, that the sky is a vacuum and you live on a globe, did Al-Biruni manage to get those rebellious gas particles who were burning their bras at the Kármán line saying, no, we won't obey natural law? Did he temporarily get them to all disappear into the sky vacuum as per natural law so he could see the geometric horizon to make this original presupposition and measurement of a horizon dip? Or was he dealing with high levels of refraction, given that he's going through all those layers you use as a red herring straw man when describing a gas pressure gradient? Well, that would give him a whole bunch of refraction, wouldn't it, from up on that mountain? So he's definitely going to be dealing with some refraction then. Oh dear, origin story for the R value. Bye-bye also. So you don't need to ask them anything, just shove it right in their face that their origin story also dies along with their R value and their geometric horizon and their assertion that they live on a sphere. All dead.
Did you just call the first gas molecules feminists?
Owen, this guy's responding to what I've just said. Go ahead, right. Moose Stone.
Yeah, the thing is, but who then calculated it in the first place? if it's not Al-Biruni. I mean, someone
No, it's Al-Biruni.
been able to calculate this without any atmosphere, and if not, then this is just completely bunk.
It was Al-Biruni.
But there was atmosphere, was there not? So this is
well, was there even an Al-Biruni? Who knows? Who cares? What we're told is a dude called Al-Biruni, who for the narrative purposes is a guy standing on a mountain, and measured it with a shitload of refraction, because everything's refracted, and they're going through all these different layers of atmosphere from up on a high mountain, because obviously we've got gas pressure gradients, and for a gas pressure gradient, you've first got to have gas pressure, and for gas pressure, you've got to have a container. But all that being said, there's definitely a gradient going up to that mountain. Definitely refracted then. Bye-bye, origin story. Does not compute.
Yeah, but that means, show it to me, I think, they should be able to show it if it's there. They should be able to to do Al-Biruni's observation once again.
Again,
and they should be able to do it all the time.
What's it? Be specific. Hold on. What's it? The geometric horizon. They should show it. No, they hand wave you and tell you we don't see it. That's what they'll tell you in defense. When you say, well, you should be able to see it, it being the geometric horizon.
Someone must have calculated it in the first place, Nathan.
Yeah, he'd need to see it, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this argument, brother. There's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, but what
it's so simple.
Saying,
I mean,
hold on, Moostone. Hold on. Go ahead, Arwin.
How come they?
Hold on one second, Moostone. Hold on.
When you have a globe,
hold on.
To ask
Hello. Hold on, just one second. There's 3 people that want to respond to you. You've got 10th Man, Chocolate, and Arwin all wanting to respond. Who wants to go first?
Oh, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just had a joke. I've had several. One was when you talked about that wanker that brought up a photo of the Isle of Man bulge, and I just thought that was kind of funny. The second one, and gay, by the way. And the second one was, I don't know, I even forgot what I said. I know nothing.
Got to work on that comedic timing.
It doesn't work if I don't interrupt. See? You can't make me wait for 5 minutes and say it after.
My God.
It doesn't work.
All right, go ahead, Temp, man.
that was
right.
Good timing there.
We'll work on flattening the Isle of Man curve later. Right,
all right,
Chocolate.
So, I'll go next.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, 10th Man.
Yeah. All right. So to Moostone, that Al-Biruni test, or whatever you want to call, has been done by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He went up 128,000 feet and said everything is refracted straight.
Yeah, he should have.
No, did he say that? Really?
Yeah, he said you can't see a curve from 120,000 feet. Yeah, man, you need to let Al-Biruni know that, NDT.
No. But did he say it? Did he say it's refracted? It's straight. It refracts to become straight. Did he really say that explicitly?
No, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He said it looks flat, but
yeah, he said that stuff looks
but how
flat.
could it look flat?
His exact quote was that stuff looks flat, and he's just basically saying when he's got a beach ball in his hand. In other words, he's saying Earth is a sphere. Now, the beach ball implies that he's talking about the geometric sphere edge that you would see if you were an ant hovering a millimetre above the beach ball. In other words, he's absolutely, explicitly describing a geometric horizon, the edge of the beach ball, when he says that if you go up on the Earth's equivalent, because Earth's obviously the same as this beach ball, sphere-shaped, and physically going to have obstructions that are Earth curve geometric horizons, and you won't see that being a geometric bent horizon at 120,000 feet. That stuff is flat. That's his quote.
You can't see the curvature of the Earth from 2 millimeters above this beach ball. That stuff is flat.
There you go. Chocolate's great with quotes.
So how does a curved surface look flat according to Ballers? Refraction. So Al-Biruni sees it at the top of the mountain, and Neil deGrasse says, no, I'm going to throw you under the bus. Earth is really big. Even at 128,000 feet, you can't see it.
Maybe that's what we'll end up with. Maybe there'll be a paradigm change and we'll end up with an Earth that's actually gimongous. Who knows? I don't see how they can. Ours is supposed to be set in stone, based around celestial observations, the presupposition of Venus being the same size. All of this stuff is based around Earth with its fixed R value. As I say, set in metaphorical terms because we don't live on a sphere, but in actual terms in their model, it would be set in physical stone. Their model is saying that Earth is a stone that's a sphere. Therefore, you're not going to be changing an R value at any time. And, you know, the reason they've got to that first conclusion is because of the celestial observations.
But are you absolutely sure that they don't have, like, the mathematical maneuvering room to make it slightly bigger? They did, back in the day, even change the distances to the sun and all that pretty arbitrarily. So why would the model not have that flexibility anymore? I know it doesn't make any logical sense, of course, but
let me answer. Let me answer.
that.
Let me just answer. You can do whatever the hell you like in a model. What I'm saying is, if you're to transpose the model onto our reality, then the model's dictating a fixed rock with an R value that's sphere-shaped. Well, that fixed rock can't grow and shrink. It's a physical fixed rock if you're reifying the model. Now, as soon as you change the R value, you're saying, well, we've got it wrong. It's not a physical rock of that shape or size. Now, if you're going to use the same method, you end up with the black swan giving you a massive, ginormous, enormous sphere, right? Well, in the model, you can just change it because we don't live on a model.
Isn't one of their stories that you could actually fit all the planets in the solar system in between the distance between the Earth and the Moon? Isn't that one of their stories?
I don't know.
Here, I could give it a quick comedic answer to the whole thing. If they're going to do that and say that the size of the Earth has been bigger, we got it wrong, then every airline would have to raise their frequent flyer miles and they'd go broke.
Moose Tone, anything more to add?
Wow, so deep, no one got it.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, one last thing. Maybe just a suggestion. Maybe someone should do modus tollens on these balloon sightings that are very, very high to see if, maybe there's a way to disprove. So, I mean, you know, with using modus tollens to show that the absence of curvature disproves the globe from that perspective as well. Just an idea.
Okay.
Can I add a bit of geometric cowbell for you?
Go ahead.
While we're talking about this, because the R value works upwards, doesn't it, Moose Tone? So if we work from what we know and what we can see geometrically, then the horizon is said to be parallel with horizontal, or horizontal's parallel to the horizon, and vertical would be perpendicular to that, or independently. Both of them are independent of each other, but they are said to be perpendicular. Strictly.
Okay.
So there's no curve because their geometry's gone. I mean, they'll admit that. So the only geometry we actually have is the geometry that we have of vertical and horizontal. Ours disappeared. And seeing as the water level is defined as being horizontal, even the tool, the word level means horizontal. I'd say they're struggling for a curve. Will that be right, Moose?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Just to summarise that point, excellent point, Bev. Just want to summarise that. So you're saying the R value's dead, and given that the R value was inserted into this geometry, and once it's dead, then no justification for inserting it. So what you're left with? Well, you're left with planar geometry. That's it.
Well, Euclidean geometry, yeah.
Euclidean.
Yeah.
Just for some cowbell on my own question that I asked before. Yes, you can, based on the distances, you could fit all the planets in between the Earth and the Moon with room to spare for maybe another Jupiter and maybe another little dwarf planet. So if the numbers of the black swan show globe, then your globe is that big. radius 264,000 miles. It's ridiculous. Might have to change your story then. A little bit.
Well, flattening
at best.
Flattening the curve would mean, you've still got a curve, but it's just a much bigger ball, right?
Did someone say at best?
At best.
At best?
Yeah, I said that. At best, yeah.
Yep. At best, what you've done is prove us wrong. That's basically what they say. Yep.
Well, that was a solid half an hour on one housekeeping question. Anything more, Moostone?
Okay, thanks, guys.
Excellent input. Love it. Any signs?
My pleasure.
Any signs of? No, it was a good. I love it. Doing half an hour on one question is good. Excellent. Any signs of axial rotation?
No.
No.
So are we talking about? Is this where we speak about Coriolis?
They use the Coriolis effect as a claim that Earth spins.
Okay. Yeah. Well, sorry to bother with that,
but then they go out.
Sorry, I had a question on that.
Go ahead.
Perhaps regarding the how do you call that? Not the merry-go-round, the roundabout. Yeah. So it's just something that I noticed in debates you had with Zanuck, perhaps, regarding the example of someone on a roundabout having a drone and then so letting go of the drone that then goes up and leaves the rotating reference frame, the non-inertial rotating reference frame. And there's just one point that's not always qualified in those examples. Is, to me, it does make a difference, although in both cases you do see Coriolis effect, in my opinion. Let's take the first example. First example is you have someone on a roundabout, and then you have someone that is outside the roundabout with a drone, and the person outside the roundabout, makes the drone go up. And from the perspective of the person on the roundabout, there is a Coriolis effect, right? Do you follow me?
So far, so good.
Now, second example is when the person, the drone is held by the person on the roundabout, and so that person at some point lets go of the drone, and the drone goes up, and the person on the roundabout also experiences Coriolis effect in his observation of the drone going up. Okay,
yeah, that's the same example.
Now,
the only difference is there's a
yes.
person watching it with the first example, but other than that, there is exactly the same example.
Let me come to my point. I think there should still be a slight difference. Is that, and this maybe goes into some of the things that the ballers are saying, is that in the second example, there should be at least a limited inertia, a rotating inertia of the drone, because it's been held in the hand of the person on the roundabout. And then when he lets it go, it does go up, but it still has a slight rotating inertia. Do you agree with that?
Well, the same is true in both examples. So if you've got a drone that's in front of the guy, as in the first example, and then the guy off the roundabout pushes the up stick, well, yeah, it's still rotating whilst attached to the rotating roundabout when it first goes up. So for a fraction of a second, yeah, it's going to have some forward momentum from the roundabout. But obviously, once it's left the roundabout, it loses any momentum that it had because it's no longer attached to the reference frame. Same principle applies if the guy's holding it. He's holding it and it's going around and around with the drone hovering but being held, so it's still attached. As soon as he lets go, well, for the fraction of a second that it was being pushed forward and he's let it go, it is still semi-attached, if you want to call that. But once it's no longer attached, it's no longer going to retain any momentum. It's not attached to it. So the same is true in both examples.
I'm not sure, because, or maybe I didn't explain my first example. In my first example, the person holding the drone is the person outside the roundabout.
Right. Oh, I see. Well,
So-
yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I didn't appreciate that. So,
rotating
yeah, I
movement,
get you.
right?
I get you. The guy standing on the edge of the roundabout, and well, for that guy holding the drone, let's say he stood right next to the roundabout, and there's another guy on it. Well, the
Yes.
guy's still experiencing Coriolis effect just by looking at the guy, because the guy seems to be moving,
Exactly.
doesn't he? Well, you don't even need to let the drone go up in the air for him to see and observe a perceived deviation. The guy seems like he's coming towards him and going away from him on the edge of the roundabout without any drone needed, because he's not on the spinning reference
Yes.
frame. He's in the inertial reference frame just by standing on the edge of the roundabout.
Yes, I'm trying to make the examples as close as possible to limit the amount of variables, but you see what I mean? The point is that it seems to me in the second example where the drone is held by the person on the roundabout, as I said, there is, as you alluded to earlier, there is a slight inertia. And so I think the ballers are using that to sort of claim that it stays stuck to the
Yeah.
things,
No, yeah, I know.
things that cling to the earth, etc.
Yes, I get it. The conservation of angular momentum. Yes, they use that as a defense. But what you're asserting,
Exactly.
just let me explain why it falls apart. If you were to assert that the drone, when it lifts off the roundabout, essentially conserves the momentum of the roundabout. In other words, even though it's left it, it's still hovering above the same exact point on the roundabout. So before you stick your drone on the roundabout and spin it, you put a little piece of tape on there and an X mark on where you're going to put the drone before it takes off. Then you spin the roundabout, so it's sat on top of the tape, not hovering, attached to the roundabout. You push your up stick, but because of the conservation of angular momentum, it still hovers above the same X and rotates with the roundabout, even though it's not attached. It's conserved the momentum. But then you don't get any Coriolis deviation. It's in defiance of the actual Coriolis effect. The whole point of the effect is you see it deviate because you continue to rotate underneath. And it doesn't. The drone doesn't rotate, it just goes straight up. But because you carry on rotating, you see it seem to deviate. But if it's conserving momentum, you're not going to observe any Coriolis effect. So celebrity wanker number 1, Simon Dan, shows us a trampoline towed by a tractor. And the guy's bouncing, but he goes back down to the same point on the trampoline, like there's an X on it, like in my example with the roundabout. In other words, the guy bouncing does not deviate. Well, then there's no Coriolis deviation. The bloody thing's supposed to be proving Earth spins by showing us things do deviate. They get around it because there isn't any by saying, well, we shouldn't see any deviation. It conserves momentum, flying in the face of their very claim that we've got a proof that Earth spins in the form of the deviation that we see, not the lack thereof, as Simon Dan showed us with his example of a trampoline towed by a tractor. No deviation, says Simon Dan. Well, no proof of the Earth spin then, Simon Dan, you complete clown. But that's their get out, yeah. Oh, well, we shouldn't have a deviation. Well, isn't that the thing that's supposed to prove it spins?
Yeah, I think that's what they use to say that it doesn't leave the spinning reference frame.
Then there is no Coriolis effect. The thing that they use to prove it is spinning?
Yeah, I know. But remember what Zanek's defense was? Well, actually, if you put an observer outside, which I'm curious to see if they have any evidence of that. But
that's not Coriolis.
Actually, the inertial reference frame
observer outside of the Earth to see, and then you would see.
Yeah, that's not.
No. Then you would leave
okay, I get it. He's saying put an observer outside in space. Yeah, that isn't Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect is then beyond the limits of the definition of Coriolis effect. That's not how Coriolis effect is defined. It's very simplistic. Inertial reference frame, non-inertial reference frame, which you will remain on as it spins. Things that are not attached to the spinning reference frame, also known as a non-inertial reference frame, will observe an apparent deviation because they continue to rotate underneath. That's Coriolis effect. Nothing to do with being in space. Utter nonsense. He's never going to find a citation or definition that defines it that way, that isn't utilising a fundamentalist globehead religious assertion that we're on a spinning ball to begin with and begging the question thereof. So ultimately speaking, Coriolis effect is very simplistic to explain. Roundabout spins, you throw a ball up, or in this example that we've used, you push up stick on a drone, it leaves the spinning roundabout, and because you continue to spin underneath, you see an apparent deviation. Well, that's not going to space and seeing things spin underneath you. That's not Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect is only achieved by you observing something that seems to deviate because you're spinning on a non-inertial spinning reference frame. So you've got idiots out there at the moment that have gone back to 2015 arguments, and they show you things like winds and water turning. And you go, hello, Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation. Or to put it another way, a ball travels straight, but because you spin underneath it, it seems to be curving. It isn't, it's going straight. So just to be clear, the ball is going straight. So it's not a spin direction for hurricanes or a spin direction for water going down drains. Those are actual spin directions. Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation. Apparent meaning not actual. Ball travels straight but seems to curve. So all of the morons out there that use winds actually turning and water actually turning as though it's Coriolis effect just demonstrates they haven't got the vaguest clue what Coriolis effect is.
Yeah, you could.
Can I just add something to
Hold on, Moose. Go ahead, Chocolate. Hold on. Go ahead, Chocolate.
No, I was gonna say you could literally call it an illusion, right? Because it's a parent deviation. It's not actually deviating.
Yeah, it's not
literally an illusion. So how can an illusion be the cause of a wind storm that's actually rotating like a hurricane?
It isn't. It's a misunderstanding by
I just wanted to just wanted to go back to this what Zanuck was saying, because he seemed to say that you would need something that's outside the spinning reference frame, and to him everything that's on Earth is in the same reference frame. So essentially, to show Coriolis, he would need to have something that is outside of supposed spinning Earth. And, for example, I don't know, being on a spaceship and shooting a bullet or some projectile.
Sorry, I've got to stop you again.
In a straight line.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
We would see the Coriolis.
I just need to stop you again. I'm really sorry. That is not Coriolis effect, regardless of what Zanuck wants to describe it as. I've just gone through this. So going through his detailed explanation of what he wants Coriolis effect to be is meaningless. Coriolis effect requires you to be on a spinning reference frame and observe something that's not on the spinning reference frame. That is Coriolis. Not Zanuck's fantasy idea of Earth not having Coriolis because it's all the same reference frame, because he's flying in the face of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Ball gets kicked on a playing field. From the stands, it seems to deviate, curve into the goal. But it's really travelled straight, Earth span underneath, while you were all attached to it, watching the ball seem to curve. That's what Coriolis effect is. Going out to space to see the single reference frame Fantasy Boy Zanuck has got us as, with a presupposed spinning Earth, and Earth being bonded to its air, defying gas law and the nature of air, is a nonsense. We don't need to dice this up endlessly. I know Zanuck thinks you need to go out to outer space to see Coriolis, because he's got the whole thing as one reference frame. Well, that's nonsense. Can
I just specify what I mean? Because maybe I wasn't clear. I'm the observer. I'm on the spinning Earth, the supposed spinning Earth, and then someone else, just as in our roundabout example, is someone is outside of Earth, really in space, and shooting a projectile in a straight line, and then the observer on this supposed spinning Earth would see a rotation, whereas the projectile is going in a straight line, and that would be Coriolis.
Yeah, I understand. You're saying that if you've got the Fantasy Boy Zanuck's single reference frame of Earth and atmosphere as one, the only feasible way to see the actual effect of Coriolis deviation, that would be something that travels in a straight line outside the single reference frame he's fantasized Earth and air are. They would have to have somebody out in space firing a rocket that does travel in a straight line. Well, with reference to what? The spinning Earth. Oh, okay, it and its atmosphere that's all travelling as one. So you look out at space at this rocket that's travelling straight, and from the ground it seems to curve. That's his example of Earth and atmosphere travelling as one as the non-inertial reference frame, and space being the inertial reference frame. And you've got stuff travelling straight lines in space. That's bollocks. You can achieve Coriolis effect with a roundabout. You don't need to be out in space. It's just his nonsense assertion that defies Coriolis effect. The atmosphere can act as the inertial reference frame. You can demonstrate it with the roundabout. So to assert that same atmosphere is actually tracking with a presupposed ball that spins, meaning that the only way you can have a second reference frame is to travel to space, it's just his made-up story to get around the fact that we don't have any Coriolis deviation. If Earth is spinning and something leaves it, then you see a deviation, like Neil deGrasse Tyson asserts. The problem with that assertion is if you see a deviation from the stands, because Earth rotated under the ball, then it's also rotating under planes, drones, helicopters, hot air balloons, and your flight time from Charlotte to North Carolina, which should take 4 hours, on a non-rotating surface, would actually take an hour and a half because the continent, LA's coming towards you. Now obviously that doesn't occur, but it would if Earth was rotating underneath. So they assert that we've got Earth and atmosphere bonded together with Velcro. Well, air's unbonded, it's not attached to anything, it's randomly, freely moving in all directions, definitely not attached to a spinning, rotating reference frame, giving you one singular reference frame. That's just a complete bullshit obfuscation of the actual effect we should observe if Earth is spinning. We should observe Coriolis deviation. That would be things that leave the spinning frame of reference that is an Earth that spins, go in a straight line, and we see them deviating, because we're spinning underneath a thing that travels straight. So it seems like it's curving from our vantage point. So you look up at an aeroplane, not attached to the spinning ball, and we go, wow, that plane looks like it's going in a curved path. Well, it isn't. It's actually travelling straight, and Earth's travelling underneath it. But as soon as you say, well, Earth's travelling underneath the plane to make it look like it's going curved, well, then Earth's travelling underneath the plane and your flight times are reduced. And they're not.
It's a train wreck.
Yeah, I agree.
The whole thing is hang on, Mustone. The whole thing is a train wreck, because if Earth and atmosphere is traveling as one, you would never even have an argument for Coriolis because you can never experience it. You'd have to be in space to see it.
Exactly. And that's what they
And
then
if any
argue.
of that was actually happening, it would be demonstrable and we would see it every day. We wouldn't even need to talk about it.
Yeah, and because we don't, they argue for why we don't see Coriolis effect, why we don't see apparent deflection of things that leave the spinning Earth, why we don't have reduced flight times. Because once you establish what gives you this apparent deviation, Coriolis effect, and the actual person you're arguing with appreciates and concedes, because they have to concede in this example, that Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation seen from the non-inertial spinning reference frame. And once you've got things deviating because they've left that spinning reference frame, you've got reduced flight times because the Earth's turning underneath the plane. Now, the Earth turning underneath the plane reducing the flight times is not Coriolis effect. That's just a result of Earth turning underneath the plane. But that's what would also give you the deviation you'd observe. That is Coriolis effect. But they then obfuscate this argument by arguing about what Coriolis effect is. It's like, it's simple. To have Coriolis effect, Earth rotates underneath things. That would be balls, planes, helicopters, drones, you if you jump up and down. Anything that leaves the spinning reference frame. In the same way, if you've got a spinning roundabout, anything that you throw off it while it's spinning, you'll look at it and it'll seem like it curves away from you, because it's left the spinning roundabout. It's really simple. So anything that leaves a spinning Earth is going to seem to curve away from you. Nothing ever does. We don't see Coriolis effect. The only assertions are with things like balls and bullets that have got a fraction of the time in the air that a plane has. So we should see the obvious effect of Earth turning underneath an aeroplane. We don't. So the ground level fundies argue that we've got a conservation of momentum flying in the face of having a Coriolis effect. In other words, we don't see one. We don't see the proof of Earth spinning. It's so similar to the Black Swan defense. We don't see a geometric horizon. Well, you need one. Well, you don't see Coriolis effect. It's all travelling as one reference frame. Earth and atmosphere travel together. But you're supposed to see a Coriolis deviation. That's what you're saying proves Earth spinning. So you go into, well, no, Coriolis is actually from space. No, Coriolis is actually about how you travel north, west, east or south. Well, no, it isn't. It's just spinning reference frame and stuff leaving it.
Yeah, fair enough.
2 housekeeping questions.
Did you also notice?
Go.
Sorry, did you also notice regarding the conservation of momentum? Remember there was this old sort of test that was made, I think in the 19th century, with the cannons being fired, cannonballs being fired straight upwards, and then falling basically in the cannon's mouth. And I think what's interesting there is that you wouldn't have that. This disproves also the conservation of momentum, because even if there were, I mean, obviously this is begging the question, but even if there were conservation of momentum in the way that they're describing, well, the bullet would have to speed up once it goes further upwards, because the speed is higher once you increase the once you're higher up. So right. And it doesn't. So
that's correct.
Yeah, this even disproves within their argument.
Yeah, it's a first law of
conservation of momentum.
Correct. To assert that, even though you don't need to get into the weeds of arguing about conservation of momentum, because the argument that they're claiming, their actual claim is Coriolis effect, but you're still correct. To assert that you have a conservation of momentum when you're travelling up on a spinning surface that's spherical, you increase the circumference that the projectile has to travel to track with the x below it. In this case, the cannon example is the x below it on my roundabout example. Well, once it goes up, it's got to travel a greater distance the higher it goes. So it's got to actually violate the first law of thermodynamics and acquire extra energy to do so. So it flies in the face of the first law of thermodynamics to actually assert that this projectile can conserve extra energy as it goes higher. But as I say, you don't need to get into that argument either. As soon as they say, well, no, what's happening is the cannonball's fired, but it's retaining some of the energy that the rotating ball Earth gave it. So it just tracks along with the Earth and then goes back in the cannonball. Well, you go, so you're saying you don't see it deviate? Because the deviation that you were supposed to see in that ball that went up was supposed to prove Earth spins underneath. That's what's supposed to prove Earth spins, this deviation that we would see. Because the cannonball went up and carried on going in a straight line, but we kept moving underneath it. So we saw it seem to curve out of the cannon as it went in the air. That's the thing that's supposed to prove we spin. But their justification for not seeing it is to argue about angular momentum being conserved. It's like, well, no, your proof is that we see a deviation. Your proof is Coriolis effect. Why are we now arguing about whether or not we can violate the first law of thermodynamics when we should just see it deviate if we're spinning, and we don't, so we're not?
Yeah, makes sense.
Anybody from the panel got anything to add?
You're totally right. You're totally right. Look, the idea that the Earth is rotating and all the consequences, and taking it a step further, the solar system and how it's supposedly flying through space without leaving any kind of fire trail behind the sun or anything. The whole thing about the motion and the consequences of the motion of the entire heliocentric system is one of the hardest to overcome suspense of disbelief obstacles when you really start to think about it.
Yeah, totally agree. Any more for any more? I'll shout out the super chat. If not,
nah, go for it, man.
Guns of Navarone RMP. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. He says, nobody compares to you when it refers to destroying the fundy ball zealotry and the ball. Thumbs up. Well, thank you very much indeed for your support, Guns of Navarone RMP. I really do appreciate it. And with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Two housekeeping questions. I love shows like that.
Sometimes you gotta be thorough.
Thanks, Moose Tone. Really appreciate it.
It goes to show how well Xanax diversionary tactics on Coriolis seem to actually be sort of effective because it's good at confusing the hell out of this argument when it's really simple.
Yeah, that's all they've got left with the Black Swan. Same principle applies. They've just got to figure out a way of making it as confusing as possible in rebuttal. And that's basically the only tactic left. Somebody's playing music. Whoever's playing music in Discord, can you turn it off, please?
Who's at the jazz club?
Don't care. Just turn it off.
No,
It
it's
is.
classical.
Don't give me any lectures about it being out of copyright because it's classical. Because that's probably not true.
I don't know what it was. It was only 2 seconds. But
it was lovely. Whatever it was. I don't care how nice it was. It was nice. So.
It's great, but the ballers have to go all the way back to 973 AD when Al-Biruni was born and start using him for anything, as if there's no new technology that could be used much easier nowadays. We have to go back then. Ballers?
Well, that's why whenever they talk about Aristophanes or Al-Biruni, and they say, "Oh, these guys proved the radius all these years." Well, who did it last week?
Yeah, exactly.
Who did it a month ago? Like, shouldn't this be something that's reiterated and reproven and retested and reused? I mean, how is it? I mean, they'll have an argument with somebody who believes in the Bible. Say, "Oh, you believe in a book that's written 2,000 years ago. Where'd you get your radius?" "Oh, this guy 2,000 years ago."
Right.
Like, what?
You need to update your science and technology when you got an old guy that put sticks in the ground and then declared.
Old guy with some sticks, and they'll tell us, "Oh, where are you guys denying science?" And you're 2 sticks. Come on, man. It's
I'm glad you brought that up. Just 1 second.
Just going back.
Hold on, we've got feedback problems from Discord. So, Moose Tony, I was going to bring that up. So, they've kind of obfuscated it by giving us the Sticks and Shadows story and saying that's where you figure out that Earth's a sphere, and it's just not the case. So while they punt that story out, most of the time the references even say, "And then he presupposed Earth was a sphere," but that's the story you get punted in terms of their evidence when in reality it goes back to Al-Biruni.
In a way, you could argue that schools and the whole system has tried to goaded everyone into basically being forced to presuppose without them realizing it and not allowing people to actually critically or thinking wise approach it. So they just make you presuppose it. They make you look past that you're presupposing it, and they disallow you from actually addressing that you're presupposing it. And now we're talking about in school.
Exactly, they mold you into a zealot at school. So, for example, as a defense, you might hear from a really poor debater in the subject, "We already know it's a sphere." So, it's perfectly acceptable to, in other words, if they're presupposing R in their argument or begging the question in their argument, what the justification is, well, because we already know. I already know that I'm right. You might as well write on their head, zealot. Who's making all that wind noise? Is that you, Arwin?
Yeah, it could have been me. I just moved. I'll go on mute.
Yeah, I think it was. It's just zealotry. So, well, I'm automatically correct anyway. You're just an idiot.
I'm surprised how weak the argument is. I mean, how little evidence they have. Really, I mean, nothing, essentially.
Right. Well, the
I think
argument
the Black Swan
the
showed
peer
that.
pressure is enormous. It's the entire Western civilization, pretty much, they have made into the peer pressure for it. So that's its power. It's the peer pressure. The peer pressure trumps intellectual approach. Effectively.
I mean, it was cool before after we went through the Black Swan, that you were like, kind of like, well, what else they got? Is there anything else that I mean, the Black Swan destroys the curvature. I mean, that's the main argument of the globe, right? That we live on a globe. Globe requires curvature. Get rid of the curvature, you have no globe, right? Everything else after that's just a good story. What are we doing? Looking at the sky?
No, they're looking at the
after
screens. They're looking at the screens. That's where the globe is.
At best,
I
you
thought they
destroyed
might have
our
some sideways
Earth.
curvature. That's why.
Look, Al Biruni didn't have a hot air balloon, didn't have an airplane, didn't have a drone. We have all those things, and they can't prove it with those things. So they have to go back to Al Biruni.
Well, if just going back to the Coriolis effect, if we can for a second, I was having a very interesting debate with a famous glober, son of an astronaut. You may know him. And I was saying, there's no observed Earth-based Coriolis effect, as we all know. He said, oh, well, there is, how do you explain, hurricanes, the go-to glober, hurricanes and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, if you think hurricanes is good enough evidence, then post your evidence. All right. So he posts something from thought.co, ironically named, which was going on about hurricanes and the Coriolis effect and whatnot, presupposing a sphere. And then I scrolled down where it actually has a definition of the Coriolis effect, and it was as reads: the Coriolis effect is an apparent effect, an illusion produced by a rotating frame of reference. So I just stopped there, even though it carries on to describe the Coriolis effect in more detail. I stopped there and I said to, Mr. Son of an Astronaut, so explain to me how your illusion, has, actual physical effects on weather systems. And that's when he proceeded to move me to a different room so I wouldn't embarrass him in front of the entire server. But yeah, that's the level of,
he quarantined
tactics
you.
we're dealing with.
Hold on. So let me get this straight. That was M. Scott Veach, right?
That would be correct.
So while they simultaneously tell me that I mute people and things of that nature, and Quantum Erase is quick to point out when this comes up as a subject matter, that if I was to remove someone or mute someone that had an actual argument, there'd be something for me to defend. When it comes to son of an astronaut, lying son of an astronaut, M. Scott Veach, you present an actual argument based on a rebuttal that he's presented you, and you cite the reference specifically, and he removes you from the conversation, correct?
Yep, that is indeed what happened. He moved me to a separate room. I thought I was still talking to everyone in the room, but then I checked on the Discord app and I was in a completely separate room with him. He's a moderator, so he obviously has these powers. And I was like, hang on, what the hell happened? Why am I talking to just you now? Is it because I looked through I actually looked at your link and read through it and found that it was completely destroying your very argument, your own proof. And he's like, no, you know how he talks all over you and he just talks really fast. That's what he proceeded to do.
Globus,
and then he left.
I know the exact citation you're talking about, because the same thing was dropped on me when I was having a debate about this with Kosho. And he dropped the same citation on. I know exactly what you mean. And Nathan, you can pull it up if you want, because I dropped it in Mass Debate.
Oh, really?
But yeah. And I destroyed him with it because it completely dismantled his argument, and it was done after that. And I've held on to it because it was so beautiful how he presented it to me, and I used it to destroy him. And it's funny that it's thought.co, and it's the same one that he presented to you. So that's pretty funny. That's why he moved you away from the room.
But when we have a winning argument...
well, we can always tell a man's character by the company that he hangs around.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Globus.
Ah, there he is.
No.
What's up,
that's
man?
Chocolate. The Chocolate, what were you talking about? Which argument or what you said you destroyed me?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kosho, but you once declared that the rotating hurricanes were actually going in a straight line. They just appeared to rotate because we were on a rotating reference frame.
It's 100% true that the winds are going in a straight line.
And
there's no reason for them to travel.
I wasn't lying, guys.
No reason for them to travel in a circle on their own. So the Earth is rotating. But when they start off their travel, they're going north or south, depending on. So the high pressures are going to go towards the south.
Say winds all go in straight lines? Really?
Are we talking about hurricanes? Sorry, hold on. Let's just clarify with Kosho.
The direction that this wind is traveling This specific wind is traveling south because of the pressures. This is why hurricanes happen in the first place.
Sorry, so the hurricane is an example. Sorry. Okay, we heard. So the hurricane is an example of Coriolis effect. The circling cyclonic nature of a hurricane, that would, according to you, be an example of Coriolis effect, because what appears to be moving in a curved path, or cyclonic path in this example, is actually travelling in a straight line. It just appears to go in a circle because we're rotating underneath it. So it is, according to you, an example of Coriolis effect. And cyclonic winds aren't cyclonic, they're actually travelling straight and only appear to take a curved trajectory because we spin underneath it. Is that correct, Kosho?
No, it's not correct.
Well, then it's not. Sorry. How is this a demonstration of Coriolis effect then?
I'm answering the question, Nate, that you just asked.
Well, no, I asked if they travelled in a straight line, and you said yes, they do travel in a straight line. It does just appear because Earth spins underneath. I've just repeated that back to you, and now you're saying no. So are you engaged in double speak, or
the wind's force? The force of the wind, the mechanism that causes the wind to move, is going in a straight line.
What's that got to do with Coriolis effect?
The Earth turning is going to cause the cyclonic nature that you
No. That's not Coriolis effect. That's not Coriolis effect, mate.
It is Coriolis effect.
No, Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation. So, if I may, I'll explain to you, but you'll interrupt me constantly, I don't doubt, what Coriolis effect is. You don't understand what Coriolis effect is. A cyclonic wind or water has an actual spin direction. Coriolis effect, however, is a not actual deviation, just an apparent deviation of something that travels straight. So unless this example has something travelling straight and only seeming to curve, this is not an example of Coriolis effect, because we're dealing with actual spin directions as opposed to apparent deviation. So this isn't Coriolis. These winds aren't demonstrating Coriolis effect. If you're claiming they prove somehow the Earth has moved them, moved them into this cyclone, that's sod all to do with Coriolis effect. Now, it also presupposes that your rotating Earth is somehow moving them to move independently of the Earth by dragging them along and twisting them into cyclonic action. Again, sod all to do with Coriolis effect, Kosho. It seems clear you don't know what Coriolis effect is, because these winds aren't travelling straight.
And by his own citation, it's described as an illusion.
If not too long ago, showing you exactly what I'm talking about and demonstrating perfectly, so you don't have to be confused about it anymore. I know that you know about.
It seems you're the one confused, Kosho.
Did you just add
Your
hummus?
citation says it's an illusion.
Sorry, did he just say I'm confused? Did he just add hummus, Kosho? Yeah, I'd prefer you didn't add hummus, Kosho. We're not confused, but by demonstration of your declaration that the winds are travelling straight at the beginning of this conversation, you are confused. That's not an ad hominem attack. You don't understand that Coriolis is a not actual deviation, and you're saying Coriolis effect is exampled with something that has an actual spin direction. So you, Sunshine, you are confused about what Coriolis effect is and what examples it. Cyclonic winds do not example. Why are you interrupting me, Kosho? I'm just educating your dumb ass. Shut up! Shut up, Kosho. Yeah, you've told us the winds are travelling straight. Kosho, yeah, it's not like with M. Scott Veach. You can't just move me to another room because I'm going to humiliate you. The winds aren't travelling straight, dickhead. That makes you thick. Means you don't understand this. You'd need something travelling in a straight line and only seeming to curve to have a Coriolis observable from a spinning reference frame. So unless we're seeing these winds travel straight but only seeming to curve, this is not Coriolis. Now, when we asked you if this was a Coriolis example, you said yes. When we asked you if the winds were travelling straight, you said yes. Now, neither are true. This isn't a Coriolis effect example. Do you understand? Because so far your declarations are wrong. And that is an example of stupidity, Kosho. Okay, stupid? That would be you, by example. Not an ad hom, a demonstration of your stupidity. So until I'm finished berating how stupid you are, Kosho, saying these winds go straight, they don't, They're moving with actual spin directions until I'm finished berating your dumbass,
Nathan,
having told me that I don't understand and then interrupting me because he doesn't like being told off and demonstrated just how stupid that boy is. You're a stupid boy. You think the winds are going straight and demonstrating an apparent deviation. You're wrong, you stupid moron. So don't sit here interrupting me while I berate your dumbass. Don't tell me that we don't understand this effect we can easily articulate over and over again whilst berating idiots like you. So you don't need to interrupt me. I'm educating your dumbass. Shut up, Kosho. You don't understand what Coriolis effect is, you dumb boy. Do you hear me, Dumbo?
There you go. I was waiting for you to finish.
Citation destroys you.
But so I posted this.
Go on, Kosho. Have the mic. He's thinking it's his turn to talk. You should be sitting in silence and listening to those more intelligent than you, Kosho. As before, Chocolate's now going to explain how your own citation destroys your own stupidity. You get it? Go ahead, Chocolate. Let him have it.
Yeah, Kosho. Unfortunately, your own citation that you gave me a long time ago goes as such. Coriolis effect is an apparent effect, an illusion produced by a rotating frame of reference. This type of effect is also known as a fictitious force or an inertial force. The Coriolis effect occurs when an object moving along a straight path is viewed from a non-fixed frame of reference. Typically, the moving frame of reference is the Earth, which rotates at a fixed speed. When you view an object in the air that is following a straight path, the object will appear to lose its course because of the rotation of the Earth.
That's right.
Right.
So when you're looking at this,
it's an illusion. So please tell us how an illusion.
Speak for 10 seconds.
Kosho, we're not waiting on bated breath for you. Kosho, shut up. Kosho, Dumbo. Yeah, you're being. What you're doing is you're being, and you're causing a disturbance, Kosho. He hadn't finished. Yet the one more smart than you, the one that understands Coriolis effect, unlike you, because you're dumb, has got a question that might educate you in this regard. We weren't waiting on bated breath for your dumbass to pipe up. He's now got a point that will follow that. We're not waiting for you to talk. Go ahead, Chocolate. Tell this dumb, stupid idiot where he's going wrong, because he doesn't seem to comprehend the actual listening bit. Just thinks it's his turn to talk all the time. No, we're telling your dumbass off, stupid boy. Sit down, shut up and listen, or piss off. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Why would I have a conversation with
Shut up! Are you fucking... Right, Kosho, I'm going to mute you now, you dumb fuck. You've already demonstrated just how stupid you are here. Now we're explaining to an audience this is more than just you here, stupid idiot. So it's not your continual time to hog the mic with your dumb assertions that the winds are travelling straight and only appearing to deviate, while simultaneously telling us it's actually non-Coriolis, Earth dragging them into cyclones. You're talking nonsense, boy. Now other people smarter than you who understand Coriolis are going to talk. Not you. It's the fourth time I've told you, dumbass, to sit down and shut the fuck up. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a question. How do you think, and something described by your own very citation as an illusion can cause an actual storm with actual winds actually rotating? Go ahead,
He actually left as soon as he got muted. So.
Oh, did he run away? So unless he disturbs every single word that's put to him and every demolishment of his stupid, dumb, idiot assertion that we've got winds travelling in a straight line, unless he can disturb every word of it, he's not going to tolerate that coming through. So what am I going to do? Sit here and let him disturb the concise, actual rebuttal to his nonsense assertion? I've got to tolerate him talking through that non-stop, have I? No, at some point I've got to take control and shut him up. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be removed from the conversation. I'm not going to do M. Scott Veitch's trick and move him to a completely different room, but I'm not going to tolerate him interrupting, Chocolate summarising how and why he's wrong. But that's what he wants, and if he doesn't get it, he's not prepared to be here, because he's a coward little bitch that will not tolerate somebody demolishing his nonsense. He's going to talk through it constantly. And that's not allowed to be kept under control. He'll rebel and run away. No, you're just demonstrating what a massive coward you are. Unless you can interrupt the rebuttal, you won't be here. Someone yawning.
Yep, that was the exact same reference that M. Scott Veach provided with me. Their chocolate, the exact same word for word, verbatim.
I know.
If it was from thought.co, it's the same one. And that was the exact same question I posed to Scott, or whatever his name is. You know, how does an illusion have physical effects? You know, thank you. And then, you know, Kosho couldn't do, like Nathan was saying, Kosho doesn't have the ability to move you to a different room. So he was talking through you. And now he's left. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was talking through me the whole time.
The question I was going to ask Kosho is, can something moving in a straight line experience centrifugal force? Because that would be determined. The centrifugal force will determine whether it's actually truly deviating or if it's if it's apparently deviating. You got to answer that question.
Well, I'm glad that he
couldn't cope with that. He couldn't cope with that. He
sorry.
had to talk through every word that Chocolate said in rebuttal because it was devastating. His definitions on screen now with everything that he's contradicting his point underlined. Now that's very embarrassing and demonstrating just how wrong he is. He wants to be here telling us that we don't understand, and when we point out just how much we do understand where he's wrong, he wants the mic to constantly be closed for anybody doing that. Or if you're M. Scott Veach, just put them in a different room. Now, I'm not going to tolerate that. I've got an audience and they're going to hear the rebuttal. And which rebuttal is it that's getting closed down? Oh, it's our rebuttal. He's getting plenty of time on the mic to make his assertion. We listened to his claim. No one interrupted him. We heard him. Now, if we didn't allow that, like M. Scott Veach did, believe me, they'd be moaning about it. But shutting him down from interrupting a rebuttal constantly, I stick him on mute for that because there's no other way. I've tried. You heard me trying to stop him doing it verbally. He wouldn't have it. But me taking control of that, which I must, because otherwise the rebuttal will never come. And that's what he's aiming for. An argument to start about him interrupting, because that's what he really wants, because then we're getting further and further away from it being concise.
Why don't they just ask us nicely to let them deceive us? Like they may as well just say, hey, can I deceive you? Can you just think what I want you to think and believe it for no reason?
Well, to be honest, I'm glad he came in purposely for me, because he reiterated the hurricane winds are moving straight and only appear to rotate, because the last time we had that conversation, it wasn't recorded. So nobody thinks I'm crazy, because he actually said it. So I'm glad he came in today and reiterated that nonsense, and then try to steer away from it after saying it. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, they take their nonsense claim and make it make sense outside of having Coriolis deviation. So he's saying, well, yeah, it's being whipped into a storm. You're like, well, that's not Coriolis effect then. Yeah, but that's what's happening, and me describing this happening has ultimately got me begging the question that Earth's spinning and causing things to happen because of it spinning, and there's no other way that... It's like, that's what they want. Let's just talk about how I can beg the question of an Earth that spins in my example. It doesn't matter whether or not it's giving me a Coriolis effect or not. It doesn't matter that my assertion that winds are Coriolis effect makes no sense, and how you're going to pull that apart. When we do that, I'll say I don't think you guys understand. No actual cowbell with it, just an ad hominem attack. So from there, I'm like, right, okay, open the floodgates for me to demonstrate just how big a moron you are by example and discussion and verbalization, and then I'll call you stupid, because then it's a description with an example of how stupid he is. He wants to get away with just ad homing us. Oh, right, your concise description of why that isn't Coriolis effect is just you not understanding. That's not a rebuttal, that's an ad hominem, a logical fallacy, calling somebody something rather than attacking the argument. Alright, so he's stupid. No, we understand this. You don't. You think winds travel in a straight line when they're in hurricanes? That's nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. But so long as he gets to argue that Earth's rotating by a presupposition, he's happy. And if anything comes along that might demolish that, and as long as he can talk through it non-stop, he'll also be happy. He'll stay here, so long as he can obfuscate any rebuttal. and justify it by rumpusing the shit out of it. Essentially, that is closing down anybody else to talk. That's their only tactic now. And when I go, well, I'm going to take that tactic away. No, Chocolate will get to reply to you with his own reference, his own citation on screen. And the only way I've got to do that after asking him is to close his line. By then he'll run away, because then he's got an excuse. No, he muted me. Oh, really? Well, I would have unmuted you the second you heard the rebuttal. No, only if I get to talk through it and then ignore it completely and move the subject onto something else that isn't the demolition of my argument. I'll only stay if that happens.
Nathan, if Coriolis, Earth-based Coriolis was a real thing, it would be seen from Earth, right? That which would be the non-inertial reference frame, right? That would be correct.
You'd have to see it from a roundabout, or in this case, the presupposed spinning ball Earth. Yes, you'd have to be on that to see it seem to curve.
Right. So then my question is, whenever we see hurricanes, they seem to be pictured or represented from above, right? And we see the rotation from above, and that would be the inertial reference frame. So if the hurricane is caused by Coriolis, which is an illusion only seen by someone on the non-inertial reference frame, which would be the ground, how do we see hurricanes rotating from above?
Because they've got actual spin directions. They are actually turning in that direction. So they're sod all to do with Coriolis effect, because that's a not actual spin direction or deviation of any description. The only spin involved in Coriolis is your frame of reference that you're sat upon, looking at something else not actually curving, but seeming to curve because you're spinning underneath it. That's actual Coriolis. This whole bullshit assertion that something with a spin direction, like water going down a drain or storms turning in the air, that somehow those actual spin directions have anything to do with Coriolis effect is nonsense. The only assertion that you could have that is if you were part of the cyclonic action. You're caught up in a twister, swirling round and round and round, and as you do so, you see a cow flying over you because it's been catapulted over the top of the hurricane. But it travels in a straight line while you spin underneath it, and what do you know? That cow seems to go in a curved path. That's about the only example you can have. Or you're in the drain. You know, you've been shrunk down to the size of a flea and you're spinning around in the drain, whirling down with all the water, and something gets flicked over the top of the sink bowl in a straight line. But because you're swirling down the drain underneath it, it looks like the thing flying over you's curving. You're like, yeah, but it isn't. It's a straight path. But because you're on the spinning reference frame, in this case cyclonic water, then you being part of that spinning reference frame gives you a not actual deviation of the thing flying over you. But when people just show us spinning water going down the drain, you're like, that's nothing to do with Coriolis. Coriolis is experienced from the non-inertial spinning reference frame, not you watching something with an actual spin direction. These morons don't understand what Coriolis is.
But it makes so much sense that things twirl and spin because of Coriolis, which is... No, hold on. That are supposedly moving, right? But yet, despite all those effects that are being noted, when referenced, the Earth's atmosphere still moves in lockstep with the Earth in order to not be able to create that spin, which would be
not according to their citation.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to have their Coriolis and eat it too.
Yeah, well, they want their non-Coriolis and their Coriolis all mixed together, and they want things that have actual spin directions to be described with Coriolis, even though the reference that has that example you'll go beneath it and see that they're describing not actual forces, illusionary deflection, things not actually curving in the very same reference. So in other words, they're more than happy to brainwash people because it's nonsense, not true. Earth isn't turning. But to convolute and confuse, they'll describe it with something that has a rotation base and then describe other things that are rotating when Coriolis gives you a not actual deflection. So that's all very confusing in the mind's eye of the layman, and that's probably precisely why they picked it, because most people won't be able to wrap their head around it after 2 or 3 sentences from a fundamentalist zealot telling you you've got Earth and atmosphere travelling as one, and you scratch your head and go, really? You won't appreciate that won't give you a Coriolis effect immediately off the bat. Only we do that here. We go, well, that's not Coriolis. But your average Joe watching Simon Dan goes, oh yeah, the guy bounces on the trampoline and doesn't deviate. They don't go, that's not Coriolis. They're too stupid. That's his audience, right? As is Dan, he's too stupid to realise he's demonstrating no deviation. Precisely the thing that they're supposed to be using as a proof that it spins. You know, thick. Any more to add, or I'm going to round out if not?
I've just, if you have access to the live stream chat on Discord, I actually posted the direct message from Scott Veach himself with that actual, that citation, his very own reference with the Coriolis effect definition. So, I like to back up my claims. So there you go. It's there for everyone to see. He actually says, this should help you bone up your Coriolis. And then he posts the reference. It's hilarious, guys.
Can't see it in this. Where is it? I have to be quick. Tell me where it is and I'll put it up on screen so it's part of this stream, mate. Or don't. Just leave the end of the show hanging in silence. Hello?
Yeah, it's at 10:25.
Oh, I've got it. Okay, I'll stick it up on screen. There we go. Perfect timing. Read that. Do you want to read it out just so you can verbalise it or not? Oh, it's the same exact citation. No, it's not. No, it's a different... Can you read out the citation, Globus Trollins? Oh, this is like pulling teeth right at the end of the show when I want to do a concise roundup. Can anybody read it? Chocolate?
You mean mine or his? I'm sorry.
The M. Scott Veach one. It would have been nice for Trollins to read it, but he seems to have just vanished.
Well, it just says... It's a screenshot and it says, how does the Coriolis effect impact Earth? The Coriolis effect refers to the apparent deflection of objects, such as airplanes, in quotes, in parentheses, moving in a straight path relative to the Earth's surface. That's all it says.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!